Hi, my name's Steve and I'm a quality engineer in the automotive industry, and in this video I'm going to talk to you about an energy source that's powering vehicles across the world: batteries. A cell, rather like this, you might recognise, consists simply of chemicals that react together to produce electricity. A battery is two or more cells connected together to produce a larger amount of electricity. Now, electric vehicles have many of these cells put together to produce the required output to power the vehicle and its passengers. There is much development going on right now around the world to develop better and better car batteries. Now, there's two reasons for this. We know that petrol and diesel cars have emissions such as greenhouse gases and CO2, carbon dioxide, that pollute our atmosphere. What we also know is many governments around the world, including the UK government, have stated that by 2035 there will be a ban on the sale of petrol and diesel powered vehicles. So this gives manufacturers a problem. We have 15 years now to develop and produce a really good, efficient battery powered vehicle. Now, we have battery powered vehicles at the moment, but they do have limitations. When petrol or diesel cars need filling up, the driver simply goes to a filling station, takes the nozzle out, fills the car up, and generally a car can be filled from empty to full in under 5 minutes. Now, that gives the car a range of hundreds of miles. Now, the same at the moment can't be said for electric powered vehicles. Electric vehicles powered by a battery have a limitation in that the rechargeable battery, which they contain, needs recharging when it's empty. Now, at the moment, we have electric vehicles that have a claimed range of 100 or 200 miles or so, but this is just a fraction of the amount that a petrol or diesel car can travel. So what generally happens is the driver of that electric vehicle needs to find a charging point. Now, a charging point is simply an electric cable from a power source that goes into the vehicle and recharges the electric battery. Now, some homes might be fitted with a suitable charging point that could charge the vehicle up overnight, and that's great if there's a driveway or some off-street parking. But what if the owner of that car lives in a block of flats or doesn't have somewhere to park the car at night? That's quite difficult. So the only option they've got then is to find a charging point. You might be surprised to know at the moment there are actually more charging points in the UK than there are filling stations. So that's quite a large number, and that number is increasing every day. So there shouldn't be a difficulty in finding a charging point. However, there are limits to charging points. Whereas petrol and diesel cars can go from empty to full in a matter of minutes or so, an electric car needs more time to increase its power. So typically this could take half an hour or maybe longer, and in the case of charging your vehicle at home, it could take all night. What we do know is there are some charging points which are free to use, and we generally find those at supermarkets, some shopping centres, or even some workplaces. One of the limitations of battery-powered vehicles is range. In other words, how far can the vehicle be driven before needing recharging? Well, some manufacturers of their vehicles might say that their car can travel more than 100 miles, more than 200 miles, maybe even more than 300 miles before needing recharging. But that's generally in perfect conditions. But what if those conditions aren't perfect? Imagine it's a very dark, very cold, very wet night, and the driver has to be driving home. He's got his headlights on, windscreen wipers on, heater on, radio on to hear about traffic conditions. All of these require power from the battery that the electric motor would generally need. So this further reduces the range of the vehicle. One of the differences between petrol and diesel vehicles and battery powered cars is that obviously battery powered cars don't have an engine, don't have a petrol or a diesel engine, but they do have an electric motor, and that's driven by the batteries. Some cars might even have more than one electric motor. The other thing is they're very, very quiet. In fact, it's now law that manufacturers of battery powered vehicles have to have their vehicles emit a noise similar to that of a petrol or a diesel car, simply so that pedestrians can hear them coming. That's a safety feature. So what's the future for electric vehicles then? Well, as we know, there's a lot of development going on into making batteries more and more powerful and smaller, hence lighter and lighter. As one of the problems with electric vehicles is the battery pack can be very, very heavy, and we're talking hundreds of kilograms. So imagine that's having a car with 4 people sitting in it as an equivalent weight. That's a lot of extra weight to carry around. But we do know with the development of new chemistry in batteries to get bigger and bigger output, the weight should drop. We also know that as more and more people buy them and the cost to produce battery powered vehicles falls, then they will be more affordable for people to buy. So perhaps the biggest threat is to our planet. This is why governments have decreed by 2035 there has to be an alternative power source to petrol and diesel cars. Batteries aren't the only alternative power. There are breakthroughs in hydrogen power, for example. However, more and more manufacturers are placing their time and efforts and development costs into making more and more efficient battery-powered vehicles. So I'd expect by the time you get to drive, your choice will be a wider range of electric vehicle from a wider range of manufacturers, and they'll be far more affordable.